Okay, we live? Today, I want to talk about something interesting. Hi, I'm Jared. Typically, I'm coding. Today, I'm chilling. And we're going to talk through some ideas. We got a lot to talk to today. There's a lot going on. And yeah, I haven't streamed in a bit because mostly I've just been thinking about this stuff. Um, like that's what I'm doing. Like when I'm not streaming, when I'm not building stuff, I'm just doing business stuff, and I'm like, why does society suck? Like I'm thinking through why how did we all become this guy on the left? You know? And then social media, it seemed like Twitter happened and then everyone kind of got really fucking stupid. And I get it. I'm not saying I'm any better at all. Um, but hey, uh why the fuck are there so many retards? Let's see. Hey, what's up, Reed? Hey, yeah, today's gonna be a fun one. Dude, I've been in the ringer. Cause yeah, I part of me is like, cause every time I stream, I'm like, do I just sit here and pretend like the world isn't fucking stupid? Yeah, let's make a fucking thing in open AI or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's fun, but I love thinking through ideas. And I've been spending years thinking through this idea. Part of why I was so interested in news, like I worked at two pretty big news companies when I was uh 27 now, when I was like around 20ish. And so like not recently, but and I was like really trying to figure out how media works, how social media works. And I got so jaded about it because I didn't know how it really worked. And now I'm like, I get it. Now I'm like, I get it more. I get it more. So first, before we talk about anything, let's talk about entropy. Let's talk about entropy. What is entropy? So you may know what entropy is, and I'm not like not like the most educated information theorist in the world, but as someone who has to work with data, I have to understand some of these basic concepts around what information is. So let's take an account. So let's imagine you have, and this is super important if you're in computer. Yeah, let's get these guys away. If you're in computer science, let's imagine you have a coin flip. Let's imagine you have, I'm figuring out this shit. Let's imagine you have a coin flip. You have to flip a coin. I get it. I'm not fucking like, I don't draw. Okay. You have to flip. This is a coin. Okay. And you have to flip a coin. In order to understand the result of this coin flip, you would have to have something. You'd have to, whether or not you can be certain to know what the result of this coin flip, you have to have something. Whether or not you can be certain about the result of the coin flip. So, long story short, you can go on videos where people really, because we have a lot to talk about. So, I'm not going to get through all of it, but that measure of uncertainty is entropy. And let's have, so entropy, we can see it, equals to level of uncertainty. This is really important because in information science, in data science, it's super important to understand what exactly information is. When we're talking about information, we're talking about how much is needed. Actually, let me give you guys a real actual definition here. So I don't like, oh yeah, so I don't muddy this up. because we got a lot to talk about. So while I have this open, so information in terms of, yeah, let's just go to entropy. So entropy in terms of is the average level of information, surprise, or uncertainty inherent to a variable's possible outcomes. So imagine you have uh, this coin flip that we have right here. Let's just use entropy as the greater thing. You have this coin flip right here. You would need, because there's only two things that can happen, you would need a certain level, a bit of information in order to understand this outcome. Now, if you had imagine you have something that has six sides. I did five only because you get it. You get what I'm trying to say here. You get what I'm trying to say here. So a dice is six sides. You kind of see it. You kind of see that that's it. It's like, it's three-dimensional. Because social media made me functionally retarded. So that's the best I can do. So the dice here is going to have, like, guess right now, before you look it up, is this going to have a higher or lower level of information needed to guess the outcome? You have one thing that has one side has a certain level of information you're going to need, and then the dice is going to have, you're going to need more. You need to know more, right? You have one out of six, one out of two. And imagine you roll this die many, 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 many times, and someone says, "Hey, what happened after I rolled this dice 5 times?" You're like, "Buddy, I'm gonna need to know a lot of stuff to make a guess." And if I make that guess, I'd be very surprised. So that's where we get into entropy and this level of uncertainty. So that's what information is when we talk about information theory and information science. It's like, how much are you going to need to know in order to transmit this result? And that's where we get to bits. We get to the 0 and the 1. Eventually, once you start calculating this level of certainty and you want to start doing stuff with this, you get to the smallest unit of information, which is 1 or 0. This is important. I promise this is important. I'm not just saying this. This matters. Well, kind of. It matters to me, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why it matters. Hey, yo, what's up, Leb? This is a chill stream. This is a hangout session. So that's entropy. And the reason why entropy matters is because when we talk about data science and all this shit, we're really talking about information. So, like, when we talk about data is not equal to information. The reason it is not equal to, because we're coders here, we're cool people. Data is not the same as information. We use data to represent information. But when we are training neural nets, when we're doing yada, 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 you don't need to know about neural nets if you're watching this. But when we're doing shit in the world, we want information. We want the things that we need to communicate to get resolved, right? We use data. I have videos where I go and I web scrape Twitter to get data and all this stuff. And then what I do is I can represent that data in a certain way, some sort of numerical way, and then I can use an AI to get information out. Okay, so data is not the same as information. It's what we use to represent it, and then we can compress it. You understand, like all this. Whenever you have a file, the methodologies around the compression of it is all based on entropy. AI itself is based on entropy. I don't know if anyone's heard of cross entropy loss, but if you're into AI and you don't know that, you should. In a lot of these big language models, the way we calculate error often, and the way we calculate when something fucked up, when we're trying to get closer and closer to our target, We use entropy. We say, okay, what was the information content in our last piece of data? And what is it in the one that we're training? What's it in the one that we actually want? That's how you get ChatGPT. That's how you get all this stuff. Is that people are actually using this. It's in the field of physics, entropy. They're using this concept of this thermodynamics concept to train these AI models. So let's get out of that. I understand. So I don't want to get too into that. That's entropy. The thing that matters the most is so there's this guy called Schrodinger. You guys probably know. Probably not. I don't know. He's just like a fucking Nobel Peace Prizing winner. Did my brain just fucking break? Nobel Peace Prize winner, legend. And he was starting to sort of develop some ideas around entropy and life. And what's interesting is, and by the way, this is like all the shit that I care actually fucking think about. Like, it turns out, if you really follow through it in terms of the quantum mechanics of all of this, people, we are sort of like information machines. It's the reason why I have this up is that it said it's really interesting how it's said. I just want to use one phrase here. Yeah. So this is someone else, but the body of an animal, not less than a steamer or a locomotive, is written fucking back in the days, is truly a heat engine, and the consumption of food is one precisely analogous to the burning of the fuel in the other. In both, the chemical process is the same. That's called combustion. And what he's talking about in terms of the consumption, and in this context, is he's talking about information. People as information engines, and we take in information the same way taking food. And also, he's talking about food here. It's like when we eat food, when we literally like eat food, there's information content in food. DNA is information content. As we eat, as we develop genetically, we get more information in our bodies. Uh, I mean, we're all machines who can breathe at the end of the day, copy others, try to imitate. Yeah, yeah. And that's another part of this where what fuels the energy, our machine is the breathing and the eating and all this. And what that does is it gives our body more information content. We actually, as we move in the world, entropy increases in our system. That's the second law of thermodynamics, is that energy is going to typically be increasing. Entropy, sorry, is going to be typically increasing in a system, and eventually you're gonna die. Everyone you know is gonna die. That's okay. Anyway, it's a chill stream. So, so why does this have to do with anything? You're like, Jared, I don't care. I'm an NPC. None of this matters. Like, I don't give a fuck. So, what's interesting to me is someone that's super fascinated by social media and all this stuff is, as it turns out, this it's not actually good. So as we get more information and as we start to use technology to produce more information over time, we actually started to make machines. And I sound like conspiracy theorist, but it's just, I'm just saying the way the world works. We started to actually make these digital machines that produce more information than we can intake. Do you understand what I'm saying? So here we get into the psychology of it a little bit. I have some notes here. By the way, here's my thesis. Social media causes information overload. Information overload breaks your mind and turns you into an NPC. And NPCs kind of suck. But anyway, let's get into information overload. Let's talk about some fucking cool shit. Uh, what's your definition of an NPC? Uh, is that a test, Solo Trail? Okay, so we'll get into that solo trip. We'll get into that. We got a lot to cover. We'll get into that. It's okay. It's okay. Just let's keep going with the ideas. We keep going with the ideas. We'll get into it. So like information over infobesity. I didn't know that was a thing. Okay. All right. So this is actually like a problem. I mean, information overload is like a feeling. It's like you can feel like you had too much information in a day. There's a literal connection to what happens in our bodies when we get too much information. And it affects our decision making process. So when you get a lot of you could look at this psychology around this or people that have tested this in certain situations and all that. But when we get a lot of information, our brain starts to like simplify things and because we actually have to think very simply. And I learned this the more I get better at problem solving, the more I try to really push myself, the more I realize, oh shit, the way we think is like you can't just think about too much. You can't think about too many things. And what happens is we tend to our decision making ability tends to degrade when the amount of information we can take into our brains gets too much. And because so imagine so when I gave you that example of the coin flip, where I don't know if you just joined, but the entropy is really the level of uncertainty in a system when you're trying to figure out the outcome, right? So it's like the amount of information I need to figure out this coin flip is going to be less than the amount of information I would need for a dice. Now imagine if you think about this as a closed system, your interaction with social media or your feed, let's say your feed is this closed system that has entropy in it. What's the amount of certainty that you would need to understand all this fucking bullshit you're seeing per post? So it's I feel like you know a lot of shit. I'm sure that 90% of it's useless because things that matter are often complicated to understand, easily store in your minds. It's hard to like it's hard to the hardest thing in the world is making complex things simple. And the thing is that we have to do it. And the best problem solvers are the ones that can take in a lot of complex information and make it simple with intention. But let's go to Twitter for a sec. Let's see my fucking Twitter. Twitter is absurd because I'm a bit of a I'm a bit out there. Let's look at my Twitter. So okay, so let's look at this. So let's think about how much I need to ingest this. So we have this guy talking about web dev stuff. On the side here, I have Price is King, Ben Shapiro, Musk. I'm getting a lot of different narratives here. I'm getting a guy talking, even though this dude's cool, talking about how if I what is this? That if I'm in a state of fight or flight, then I that's too much for me, you know. This is a funny meme where it's this lady's talking to, but I'm getting the information about an icon right here, Ryan Reynolds and some girl, you know, like I'm ingesting, so I'm getting this thing where some guy's getting held at gunpoint in Brazil. You understand what I'm trying to say? How am I supposed to make sense of that? 'Cause I just flipped through. How much stuff did I just flip through right here? I'm getting something about like a quote unquote trad wife that's obviously not. You know, I'm getting like some UFC stuff. Like, what the fuck? Like, really think about how much information is here. You are what you consume, 100%. Um, dude, 100% solo trail. It's like the so I can't like that's too much information. Like, and I get it. Like, it's like I'm not. I can look at that and not freak out, but it's like I'm just talking about the concept here, where it's like we have to make a decision with all this information. It's like, do I like this? Do I don't like this? Who is this person? And then we get into what happens when people start getting trained to think this way of oversimplifying concepts and doing binary thinking. This man bad, this man good. What happens when that happens for 20 years straight? What happens to your society? All right, so information loads overload sucks, but there's also another part of this, and this is the part where we all know is group. What is group? Why do we get into groups? So, what happens is the world gets too complicated. We get too much information to make a decision. We get scared. So psychologically, we start to offload that information or that decision making ability to a greater whole. And also, it's just simpler. Now, I'm going to give you a Carl Jung quote. Let me know what you think. The group experience takes place on a low level of consciousness than the experience of an individual. This is due to the fact that when many people gather together to share one common emotion, total psyche emerging from the group is below the level of the individual psyche. If it is a very large group, the collective psyche will be more like the psyche of an animal, which is the reason why the ethical attitude of large organizations is always doubtful. The psychology of a large crowd inevitably sinks to the level of mob psychology, of groupthink. Therefore, I have a so called collective experience as a member of a group that takes place on a lower level of consciousness than if I had the experience by myself alone. So there's this drive to get on social media. The and here's we get into the NPC talk and what I mean when I say NPC. So like, what is an NPC? What is an NPC? You're like, I thought Joe was gonna do a coding. This is coding. All right. So before I'm gonna do I have stuff to build by the way. But this matters because we're in an interesting time in our society. So before Twitter, after Twitter, right? So what is an NPC? What is an NPC? Now we're just left with this guy. There's no more guys on the left now. See what you did. What is an NPC? Is a non-playable character. It's a meme about what exactly is going on in the world. So when you're playing a video game and you're playing Skyrim and you're walking around, the world, if you play Skyrim for long enough, eventually the world feels dead because you're like, wait a second, I'm alone. And it seems like I'm trying to like like it's fun and everything. I maxed out the character, but like I can't really have any real conversations here. I'm gonna go like talk to my friends. So the NPC is like the other people in the game of Skyrim. Okay, it's non-playable characters, people that are not exactly they don't have free will, right? Or they have free will. Well, that's where it gets complicated. I'm not saying people don't have free will like Skyrim players, but they behave like they don't. They behave more so on an automation. So a non-playable character, as described by Jung, is is living in a lower level of consciousness. And I would argue, my argument is this need, this desire to get on the internet and social media, which is I'm about to get into why, which is pretty interesting. A lot of this is pushing ourselves. We're having this natural need to want to get on the internet. It's pushing ourselves into being in a situation where we get so much information that we have to think oversimplify everything. So our brains get used to thinking in a binary way. Our brains get used to, oh, orange man bad, orange man good. Oh, now it's this other side who thinks all these things. Israel this, Israel that, and we're actually talking about narratives in places with a lot of people out there in places we've never been. This is a big problem in the West, and the reality is your knowledge about a lot of these topics is not, as the NPC, is not the same as the information you're consuming. So knowledge is not the same as information. And as a living person, like I care about my knowledge. A lot of knowledge comes from how we reason and, internalize information. And this is like a known thing in the data world, where it's like if you have a knowledge base, this is the information your business knows. The information, I can go and scrape a ton of data and then I could get a ton of information from it, right? But the knowledge is real. The knowledge is what's human. Knowledge is what comes when humans reason and internalize information. So let's get into why people do this. Why the fuck? Why do people go on the internet? This is what I think about. This stuff matters way more uh, than just like fucking learning. 'Cause if you figure shit like this out, then you can be like, oh, I don't have to learn this. I can learn this. Okay, so let's think about it. This is Maslow's need, fuck that up. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, so we start at the bottom. We have physiological, breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion. That's the thing you just need to do. That's the base. You don't have this, you're gonna wanna get. This is the hierarchy. This is a theorized hierarchy of like all the shit that people really wouldn't wanna fucking get in their life. So like the, the level above that is safety. We have security of the body, employment, resources, morality, family, health, property. It's like what's actually securing you in your life? Like, well, what's something that's making you feel like you don't have to get in that fight or flight as my wife looking to remind me. Safety, so that level, the physiological is like, how do I fucking survive? This one's about, oh, thanks. Thanks, Sam. Nice. My brother just sued each other. All right, so above that, we have love and belonging. Friendship, family, sexual intimacy. So, like, you're kinda getting where it's coming from. Above that, we have esteem. This is the most above that, we have self-actualization, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Above love and belonging, we have esteem. So, like, there's this kind of people always talk about FOMO and all that stuff. A lot of what drives us to go and this is a little different from the entropy talk, we're gonna get back into that, but a lot of what drives us into social media is this concept of, like, attention. I want attention. I wanna be a part of a crowd. I wanna either engage or I wanna give attention to the things that matter to me, to my people, to things I think is funny, which it's often this, this thing where we want to give to some greater whole or get from a greater. And there's one problem with this is because when your entire the way you're behaving with the world is all through trying to reach towards this like greater whole where you're getting your confidence from, you're getting your sense of like, oh, I want like I want my simps like with like a girl, like you're a hot girl, you're like, oh, I want to get this adoration, or you're like a guy who's like an influencer, you want to seem cool. It's like when you get into that feedback loop, and also the people who are engaging with you are getting their own feedback loop, you start to get addicted to eyeballs, addicted to group. What is groupthink? Groupthink is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational and dysfunctional decision-making outcome. So they're kind of saying it's bad here. Say that again. Group is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. So what's interesting here is the harmony and conformity thing. So we know based on physics that entropy increases in a system. What happens after that information content increases and all that, is the individual objects in that system start to conform into harmony. So you have all these things that are moving and moving and moving. It comes to a point where if you take a snapshot of that system over time, you're just the system's just not going to make any like it's all going to be the same. It's going to be dull. There's not going to be anything that's like unique in it. And if you're making an assertion that that would have sort of a rational, dysfunctional decision-making outcome, I would agree, but I'm not exactly saying that that's like 100%. You check out Byung Chul Han. Solar Trail, could you send me some stuff on that guy? And I don't know how to do that, but oh, I didn't do the Discord link. On another video, maybe find the Discord link. Send me that on Discord. I would definitely look into that. Dude, yeah, I look into it a lot. All right. So, philosopher, nice. So, where are we at? Right. Here we get to the fun part. Here we get into the fun part. This is my one. Listen, that's all the given. Now we get into why I give a fuck about it. Because a lot of this stuff is why I learned this shit, to be honest. But now you know all that, because I may have lost some people, but I get it. If you're still here, great. Because now you're gonna get into why the fuck I fucking not even just me, but like why this stuff like I think it matters. Why I think information matters. What is FAANG? What is FAANG? I want to find like a good graph. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What is this? How do I like expand this shit? Hold on a sec. Can I make this bigger or something? Well, the concept of group thinking goes back in history, even religious, to us. Yeah, definitely. To a certain extent, where you're not allowed to question anything. But what the book tells you is both a group thinking too. Yeah. Yeah, no, people have been using groupthink to control the masses for a while. Um, actually, I like this one. I like this. You know what? Dude, Brave Search sucks. The Brave Search sucks so much. Just let me expand the photo. I'm gonna have an NPC screwed. I'm gonna fucking freak out. Yeah, people have been using groupthink and conformity around an idea to dull the masses for a while. And it's like, why would you wanna be dull? Or why do people wanna dull you? Let's think critically about that. Right now, we're gonna get into more less sciencey fucking stuff. We're gonna get into more and more fun stuff. Because that's a lot of the given. So, like, I like to when I'm thinking through ideas, I like to think about the fundamentals first. That's a lot of the fundamentals. Um, okay, but, like, what do we act like, how does this become real? Now we can sort of mathematically figure out the issues with too much information, that people operate as these information engines and shit. Okay, FAANG. Why do I give a fuck about FAANG? Why are we talking about FAANG? Do you know what FAANG is? Okay, FAANG, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. And, Google's, what is it called? What is it called now? Alphabet and Facebook's Meta. Um, so whatever. But the important thing about this is each one of these little verticals right here, and I mean little, is has information dominance. This isn't conspiracy. This is just how the world works. So Facebook has. So this is how these companies make money. By the way, they have social information, and we'll say for citizens, but for citizen data, Facebook has a dominance in social information. Amazon has a dominance in consumer information. Well, we'll say, I'll say, there's another aspect of this is really important if you want to innovate in the sphere of tech right now, in my opinion, is you have to think it through. What is social media? Why is it? How does the beast operate? Okay, so Apple owns the devices of information. Netflix, entertainment information. I know it seems basic, but it matters. Google is more so what you seek. Let's break it down. We can actually rephrase all of these. Facebook, no, well, actually, before we actually rephrase this, talk about what I mean when I say that they have a dominance over this information. But Facebook is a dominance. Facebook has a dominance when it comes to the social graph. So, like, they know who you're connected with socially. That's really important. Important for the government. It's important. And I understand I'm making claims, but it's just true. It's like this information is used a lot when it comes to the government. Could it be? And uh, the reality of that is that tends to be really interesting when you have a ton of businesses that want to target people based on their social interests, based on how they relate to others. It's like, hey, I can buy a Facebook ad and target someone based on whether or not they go to music concerts a lot. You know what I mean? It's like, how do these people engage with their social life? Type of uh, people, what type of people do they go to high school with? And are they not only that, are they part of a subset of people that have certain types of behaviors? That's where we get into, and I'll keep it social and social behaviors. So Amazon is what fuck you buy. You can tell that a guy is aging if he or a girl's aging if he buys certain products. If someone's buying fucking tampons, it's pretty obvious, right? You can figure out a ton about a person if they have certain. I understand buying behaviors. Remember, this whole time, behaviors is super important in this. Now we have Apple. They they get they have the devices you use to do the behaviors. I don't even know how best to put that. You buy your iPhone and you go on Facebook. You get what I'm trying to say. Okay, Netflix. Do you? And by the way, there's another thing here that we can talk about. Corn Hub, right? But for Netflix, it's similar thing. It's like, do you like fucking stupid Marvel movies or not? It's like there's more behavioral shit. Understand? So you see how it's all? It's like, what do you do? And then Google. I mean, Google's just all encompassing behavioral data. It really Google's just like everything. So why does this matter? Why is this related to what we are just talking about? Because if you don't already see it here, this is a loop. So you engage with FAANG, you engage with big tech, you give them your behavioral data, and they do stuff and they hoard it, and then you're addicted to something, whether it's consuming because of how you relate to people. Um, you want to see your fucking Facebook feed. You want to I don't know, stalk someone on there. You keep reinforcing something that's getting more and more fine tuned to who they think you are. Does that sound familiar? It's AI, and it's a neural net. So what's interesting to me about this? All right, let's get into technofeudalism. Technofeudalism. What's interesting to me about this? I get it. I'm a crazy guy. This stuff matters. This stuff matters. So what's interesting about technofeudalism? And by the way, technofeudalism is there's not like a there's a Wikipedia. This guy wrote this book. Okay, I just want to get this summary just so I can talk through it. Let's just go here. Let's see. So the interesting thing, yeah, I want to see. Okay, big tech. This is like his thesis. Big tech has replaced capitalism's two pillars, markets and profits, with its platforms and rents. With every click and scroll, we labor like serfs to increase its power. There's a little like I don't know, like it's a little subversive the way he's putting it there, but the idea is interesting where we now live in a world where who has the most powerful in citizen data is king. That's just the world we live in. That's it. It's tech dominance. And one of the problems with that is when that starts working really well and solidifying in our country, or not everyone lives in America, but like you get it, like in the world, you get into a situation where, frankly, the system that we have to engage with because we're addicted. To make sure that happens, it starts to kind of fucking kill us. Whether it's consenting to a narrative on what you should put in your body, whether it's consenting to narratives based on how you should engage in war, whether it's consenting to narratives that all sorts of things that aren't good for you. Because you have to consent, because here we get to the result of all this. You're consenting to too many narratives, addicted to being in FOMO, lack of critical thinking, life becomes dull. That's the problem with social media. The more we engage with social media, the more we start to get addicted to clicking and scrolling and all that. We're doing a feedback loop, giving our behavioral data to essentially like an information empire. I know it sounds intense. I mean, I'm not trying to make it seem like so fucking intense, but like we're giving it to people that are essentially trying to push more narratives to keep us doing that. They want to reinforce that behavior. And what narratives are that? Narratives to do with your identity, your race, your like thing, anything that you're gonna emotionally react to. It's why your feeds on all these platforms, your shorts, all the things you're clicking at, it's all emotional because that's how they make more money. And they can target it more because they understand who you are more. And then the more you react and react, the more narratives you have to make sense of. That's where we get into the information overload. The more of those narratives come, the simpler things have to be for you, the more dull you get, unless you start thinking things through. It's a shame. So what's the answer? So entropy is coming in. We use the social media. And by the way, every time you post stupid narratives, you're making it so another person has to fucking become stupid. I mean things where it doesn't have real it like the information is not strong. The information is kind of stupid. It's like, oh, I don't like this type of people, or this type of people should vote for this type of people or this person. So what's the answer to it? I think what's interesting about this is like I get to think about the answer. I could just say it. It's so funny because it's not really like a simple answer. And like the because it's not just going offline. It's simpler, or it's that's too simple actually. It's not just going offline at all actually. Like I think the answer to the creating of the NPCs and all that, I think it's more so decreasing the noise as much as possible, which could like you could say that's the same as getting rid of social media or whatever, or like not using it ever in your life or whatever. But really, it's all just personal accountability. The more I think about it, it's like, are you fucking addicted to this stupid thing? Is that you? Like, did you do this to yourself? Are you fucking addicted to? Do you go on corn or whatever? It's just YouTube, right? Isn't it? But it's like, are you going on these sites that you shouldn't be going on? Is it because you're trying to satiate yourself? It's easy when we think about it in terms of like porn and shit, but it's like, are you trying to satiate yourself on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram? It's like, what are you trying to satiate? What is that? Because like part of me is because part of me is like, okay, I kind of have. an understanding of some nefariousness when it comes to the media and all that, but it's like they part of me is also like they know not what they do. You know? Like there comes a point at the end of the day where it's like, just stop. Just stop. Just because really like the more you all this dulling entropy in the world, everyone becoming more and more NPC over time, whatever. It's like it's not. It's true in the sense that like it happens, I guess, but it's like the I like the saying where it's like one man with God is a majority, and then you don't have to believe in anything it's saying. That's more just saying it's like if you have free will, that's all that matters. If you just make a fucking choice, it's like it's why it's like speaking the truth is really it. That's really the answer. It's like, can you say the truth? That's why I'll test people. It's like, can you say something against the hive? That's how you test your friends, too. But can they say something against the hive? You know, like if someone's talking about something, it's like you even say something just to like poke them a little bit, just to kind of be like, "Are you alive?" It's like, can you? And it's like whatever it is, whatever the hive's about. Like, test people. It's like, can you fucking like, can you say something real? You know, yeah, what I'm saying. That's what matters the most. All right. So that's it. Don't be an NPC. Yeah. I mean, these ideas, there's so much to unpack. I would highly suggest everyone read Schrodinger's What is Life? Read about individuation and Carl Jung. I mean, there's other shit too. Individuation's big. Just read about history, but understand as much as you can about information theory if you're in the STEM, if you're like, especially if you're in software engineering or like computer science in general. Because right now, a lot of concepts around this is what they don't talk about. I say they, but it's like a lot of concepts around entropy and information theory are developing to a point where in deep learning, that's where deep learning comes into play. It's developing where people are starting to see a lot of this AI stuff is really just operating on energy, input and output, which makes sense because the thing that trains AI, thing that like makes things learn or makes AI learn is entropy. I mean, like not all the time, but in a lot of the models that are getting heavily developed right now in industry. So it makes sense why energy in physics and AI would meet, Right now, I would say like if you want to push the understanding of a lot of these things, really get into, and also, by the way, quantum physics, thermodynamics, all that stuff. That's a lot of that stuff is why we have linear algebra. So that's another thing to think about. All right. All right. It's been fun. All right. Adios.